As Chancellor of the University, I declare this congregation open for the conferring of degrees by the authority of the Senate and the Council.
As Vice-Chancellor, I am delighted to welcome you all to this degree congregation. It is a celebration for all those who graduate today. We celebrate your many achievements that culminate in the award of a degree from a major international research and teaching-led university that has been placed in the top 20 UK universities in national league tables created by the Financial Times over the last 3 consecutive years. All degree ceremonies are special to the individuals who graduate. This is a special degree ceremony for postgraduates. It provides strong evidence for the Financial Times' statement that we are the leading UK provider of postgraduate taught courses. Indeed, I hope that many of you will wish to continue your education by studying with us for a doctoral degree. Indeed, today provides you with an excellent opportunity to talk with your tutors about registering for a doctorate and gaining a grant, wherever that becomes appropriate. Many of you have combined work with part-time study by distance learning, and I am sure that this is probably an approach that will appeal to parents and friends who might well wish to study with us. Certainly, if any of you do harbour the idea that you would like a degree from the University of Leicester, then you can approach us today and we will have you starting a programme of study by sometime in the middle of next week. But what kind of university is Leicester? This year we have 19,500 students, 50% of whom are postgraduates. We have a staff of 3,500 and a turnover of £155 million. But what are our other characteristics? First and foremost, we are a research-intensive university contributing to the knowledge-based economy. We won the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Higher Education in 2003 for our research and teaching in genetics. Teaching is at the forefront of our activities and closely linked with research. It has also been regarded as excellent by independent assessors who have recently visited us, and in addition, we have a number of special research projects looking at curriculum development in various subject areas that will help inform the work of other universities as well as our own. We are actively involved in widening access and widening participation by attracting people from different social groups to the university in order that they may share in the success in which we are involved. We engage in 2-year foundation degrees and have already produced the first group of graduates with Bishop Grosseteste College in Lincoln. And most importantly, we retain those who study with us as we have one of the smallest dropout rates in the country. Now, all these features have figured strongly in the national debate about the future of higher education that was initiated by the Secretary of State a year ago. The media have focused attention on student finance, but the Higher Education Bill also covers research, teaching, widening participation, and many other areas that strike to the very core of higher education. Nevertheless, finance is fundamental for a successful university. It allows us to provide high-quality teaching and high-quality research and an excellent student experience that you will all have witnessed. It's in that sense that top-up fees become an essential component of a university education, and it is also important that the university generates funds from a wide range of other sources. Certainly, the University of Leicester has much to contribute, and I hope many of you will wish to think of ways you can contribute to the university in the coming years. It could involve, for example, working with our Careers Advisory Service to mentor other Leicester students. It could well involve providing research opportunities and support through the places in which you work, as many of the locations in which you are employed are natural settings for research work by people in this university. You could introduce us to sponsors who we could approach in our systematic fundraising campaign that starts next week. And in addition, a campaign that starts today, you could well contribute to our alumni campaign to support our library for a new generation of Leicester students. Finally, I would like to congratulate you all on the degrees you have obtained. We hope you will keep in touch with the university, and I shall look forward to seeing you at alumni events that are held regularly throughout the year. But before I close, I would like you to join me in showing your appreciation to your parents, relatives, friends and sponsors who have supported you through your university career. So I would now ask the graduating class of 2004 to join me in a round of applause for those people. That's very good. I hope you continue to applaud your fellow graduates throughout the afternoon. I also hope you have an absolutely splendid day with us and every success in your future careers.
Peter Donohoe is a concert pianist. He first came to international prominence in 1982 when he was the joint winner of the International Tchaikovsky competition. Now, the world of classical music is generally thought to be civilized and cultured, far removed from the mass hysteria surrounding the pop star or the riots and ticket touts which mar professional football. That night in Moscow showed the passionate side of music. In an unusual move, the jury, after deliberating far beyond their usual deadline, had withheld the gold medal, awarding Peter Donohoe and a Russian joint silver medals. This decision did not meet with the approval of the Russian audience, who had greeted the performance by Peter Donohoe with rapturous applause and who had been baying his name all night beneath the jury's window. The police had to be called to clear the conservatoire building. 18 months later, he returned to Russia to give a series of concerts. He was again greeted by rapturous applause and repeated standing ovations. Tickets for the concerts changed hands on the black market for up to 20 times their face value. The Russian audience had taken Peter Donohoe to their hearts. Peter Howard Donohoe was born in Manchester in 1953. He was educated at Chetham's School, Manchester, and the University of Leeds, where he read music. At Chetham's, he was noted for his facility with different instruments. He took up in succession the violin, viola, clarinet, and double bass, alongside his piano studies. He went to Leeds to study composition, before returning to Manchester to the Royal Northern College of Music to continue his piano studies with Derek Wyndham. He also studied in Paris with the composer Olivier Messiaen and his wife, the pianist Yvonne Loriot. As a further mark of his versatility, although I suppose the piano is technically a percussion instrument, he supported himself during his studies by becoming a freelance percussion player, appearing with many symphony orchestras in the north of England. And he still enjoys himself as a timpanist with amateur orchestras. He eventually accepted his destiny, becoming a professional solo pianist in 1974. He was a finalist in the 1976 British Liszt competition, the 1976 Liszt Bartók competition in Budapest, and the 1981 Leeds International Piano competition. By the time of his Moscow triumph, he had acquired a solid British reputation, having performed at the BBC Promenade concerts since 1979. In the years since that initial Russian success, Peter Donohoe has developed a distinguished career that has taken him to every part of the world. He has appeared with most of the greatest orchestras. He undertook another major tour of Russia in 2002, when he proved as popular as he had been 20 years before. He performs regularly in Australia, New Zealand, and the Far East. In Britain, he has appeared with all 5 London orchestras and most of the major regional orchestras. He has performed at the Proms every year since his debut in 1979. Of course, Peter Donohoe has made many recordings. He's won several awards for these recordings, including the Grand Prix International du Disque Liszt for his recording of the Liszt Sonata in B minor, and the Gramophone's Concerto Award for his recording of Tchaikovsky's Second Piano Concerto. His recording with the Netherlands Wind Ensemble of the complete repertoire for piano and wind instruments by his old teacher Messiaen has received widespread acclaim. Peter Donohoe maintains strong artistic links with the West Midlands, where he now lives with his wife and daughter. His close association with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra goes back to the beginning of his career in 1974. He was artistic director of the Solihull Festival from 1991 to 1995. He is also a vice president of the Birmingham Conservatoire, where he has been a consultant tutor since 1989. And recently, he has branched out in a new direction. In March 2002, he made his debut as principal guest conductor of the Bath Philharmonia, conducting Beethoven's Fourth Symphony. Peter Donohoe is also the founder and artistic advisor of the British Piano Concerto Foundation, which aims to raise the public awareness of the British piano repertoire through performance and recording. He himself has performed and recorded works by Britten, Rawsthorne, and the modern composer Dominic Muldowney, whose piano concerto was first performed by him at the Albert Hall in 1983. His recording of this work with the BBC Symphony Orchestra was issued in 1988. Peter Donohoe has been described as an outsized personality, both on and off the stage. I think he would have to be, since the story goes that he had to inform Nigel Kennedy that Kennedy had been eliminated in the first round of that 1982 Moscow competition. Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Senate and of the Council, I present Peter Howard Donohoe, that you may confer on him the honorary degree of Doctor of Music.
Admitting the degree of Doctor of Music, welcome among us. Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to try and put this hat on, which apparently is quite difficult. Good, thank you. Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, Mr. Public Orator, ladies and gentlemen, I did have a speech prepared. I actually prepared it in bed last night with a laptop on my knee, but I left it at home. So this is somewhat impromptu. I have been in this situation before, and I always forget just how awestruck I am by the importance of such an occasion. It really is serious, isn't it, this? Heavy stuff. Come on, lighten up. I will never really get used to just how important education, perhaps when I was being educated, I didn't really understand just how important it is. And now that I'm old and past it, it really is extraordinary to see such gravity, and it's absolutely essential that it is regarded like that, and I hope that it continues to be in this country and that it doesn't in any way become less important to this government. I never feel as if I really deserve all the wonderful things that happen to me, because I don't feel as if I've worked very hard at all. It's as if I've spent the last 3 decades or so, or maybe a little bit more, indulging in my hobby and being paid for it. However, Mr. Public Orator, thank you so much for summing up what I've done so optimistically. It is a huge honour for me to be conferred this honorary doctorate and to receive it. I feel as if, and this is terrible writing, please forgive the the slow nature of this. I feel as if I've had a long association with Leicester. Part of my family used to live just outside Leicester, and we used to swap houses when I was a small child as if we lived there. And one of my earliest concerts actually took place in this hall. I don't mean that I gave, but I came to listen to. I can't imagine what age I was, but I imagine I'd be 8, something like that. And I feel very close to this hall. It's been part of my career, really, since I started. And since its refurbishment in '91, which I think is the right date, it's even greater than it was before. And I've had the pleasure of playing on this stage many times. And my wife's mother, by the way, was born in Leicester as well. So there are still many associations. And all in all, I feel as if I have a great affinity with both the university and the city. I did say, somewhat facetiously, that I felt as if I'd indulged my hobby for 30 years and been paid for it. And there is some truth in that. And now I'm being generously honoured for it. Basically, it's true. Unlike for all of you people, you have graduated having achieved something that a mere court jester like me can't really even conceive of. And so congratulations to you all for everything. And with all my heart, the best of luck for everything in the future that happens to you. A great future. And again, thank you to the university for this fantastic honour. Thank you very much.
The graduands in the Faculty of Arts will be presented by the Dean, Professor Shattuck. Will all graduands in the faculty please stand?
Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit these candidates from the Faculty of Arts to the several degrees for which they are presented.
Graduates of the Faculty of Arts, by the authority of the Senate, I admit you to the several degrees which you are presented.
For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Mark Brown. Julia Cordova Gonzalez. Gillian Hawkes. Bridget Lewis. For the degree of Master of Arts in Archaeology and Heritage, Claude Jean Harel. Eve Rothery. For the degree of Master of Arts in English Literary Research, Alexandra Bradshaw. Terry Gibson. Simon Nias. For the degree of Master of Arts in Humanities, Alexandra Cooper. Mary Murphy. For the degree of Master of Arts in Landscape Studies, Matthew Bristow. Paula Kuki. Brian Lewis. Matthew Morris. Vanessa Ross. For the degree of Master of Arts in Modern Literature, Basil Amasalme. Ashley Clark. John Papadopoulos. James Ringer. For the degree of Master of Arts in Rome and its neighbours, Claire Jacqueline. Lisa Venables. For the degree of Master of Arts in Victorian Studies, Angie Edmonds. Karis Flew. Kaljit Gill. Shiho Hashimoto. Riza Najafpur Navai. On Ki Sang. Caroline Wessel. Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit to the several degrees for which they are presented by my faculty those candidates who are absent.
By the authority of the Senate, I admit those candidates who are absent to the several degrees which they are presented.
The graduands in the Faculty of Science will be presented by the Dean, Professor Hillman. Will all graduands in the faculty please stand?
Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit these candidates from the Faculty of Science to the several degrees for which they are presented.
Graduates of the Faculty of Science, by the authority of the Senate, I admit you to the several degrees which you are presented.
For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Michael Abbott. Timothy Adams. Anita Boardman. Richard Bruce. Ben Croxtall. Mohammed Mohidin Habibullah. Kim Page. Ludwig Schneider. For the degree of Master of Science in Advanced Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Vijaya Gananthan Viswanathan. For the degree of Master of Science in Advanced Mechanical Engineering, Shi Du. Anand Babu Odedra. For the degree of Master of Science in Embedded Systems and Control, Laurent Bontonneau. Sathya Hari Rao. Zaki Iqbal. Paul Isaiah Baskaran. Jignesh Kamar. Piyush Prince. Shanmuga Sandara Rajan. Kamesh Srinivasan. For the degree of Master of Science in Geographical Information Systems, Mohammed Abdullah. Kieran Branch. Christian Castle. Olu Bukola Lasaki. Nina Nweki. Jane Proctor. Peter Whiteman. For the degree of Master of Science in Information and Communications Engineering, Andrew Bosworth. Senthil Chidambaran Kanusami. Anjali Das. Salil Gunashekar. Suguna Thanaganasundram. Dai Wu. Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit to the several degrees for which they are presented by my faculty those candidates who are absent.
By the authority of the Senate, I admit those candidates who are absent to the several degrees to which they are presented.
The graduands in the Faculty of Law will be presented by the Dean, Professor Clarkson. Will all graduands in the faculty please stand?
Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit these candidates from the Faculty of Law to the several degrees for which they are presented.
Graduates of the Faculty of Law, by the authority of the Senate, I admit you to the several degrees which you are presented.
For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Oksana Golyenka. For the degree of Master of Laws in International Commercial Law, Jussi Atola. George Accra. Ellen Boson. Anne-Marie Casey,
Congratulations.
Gregory Delays,
Congratulations.
Rui Ding,
Congratulations.
Benjamin Dobbs,
Congratulations.
Nadine Faulkner,
Congratulations.
Ollie Honkila,
Congratulations.
Dimitrios Lilavitis,
Congratulations.
Christian Lelivic,
Congratulations.
Wai Shun Lo,
Congratulations.
Vasiliki Manusi,
Congratulations.
Michelle Massini,
Congratulations.
Karsten Shaw,
Congratulations.
Holger Schier,
Congratulations.
Axel Scholler,
Congratulations.
Katharina Schulenberg,
Congratulations.
Mohammed Tsabaihat,
Congratulations.
Maria Vasulu,
Congratulations.
Katerina Vidali,
Congratulations.
Aruna Wugra Singh,
Congratulations.
Fanshu Yang,
Congratulations.
Xiao Yuan,
Congratulations.
for the degree of Master of Laws in Public International Law, Robert Foster,
Congratulations.
Bibi Hussein,
Congratulations.
Benjamin Woffenden,
Congratulations.
for the degree of Master of Arts, Daniel Attenborough,
Congratulations.
for the degree of Master of Arts in European Management and European and Employment Law, Julian Jack,
Congratulations. Well done.
Mr. Chancellor, I ask you to admit to the several degrees for which they are presented by my faculty those candidates who are absent.
By the authority of the Senate, I admit those candidates who are absent to the several degrees to which they are presented.
Inderjit Singh is a major force for interfaith understanding and tolerance around the world. His incisive and insightful writing and broadcasts have stimulated thousands to reflect upon the value of diversity and the lessons to be learnt from the beliefs and experiences of different faiths and cultures. And his influence at the highest levels of society ensures that the interfaith agenda is always to the fore. Inderjit grew up in Birmingham. The only Sikh in his class, he soon learned how to deal with the bullies by following the teaching of the gurus. Be proud of your different identity and stand up for individuality. His father was a doctor, but Inderjit elected not to follow in his footsteps, instead studying engineering at Birmingham University. At that time, mining was the place to be, and through a series of jobs, he progressed towards his goal of qualifying as a mine manager. He achieved his aim whilst employed by the Coal Board, only to be summoned by his seniors and told that the men underground would never accept a Sikh as their manager, so he should look elsewhere. He did, and moved to India, only to find more of the same, arriving there during a period of intense discrimination against Sikhs. Incensed, he decided to write to the papers, but realised rather cleverly that he'd have more impact under an alias. Purporting to be an Englishman, one Victor Pendry, he penned a powerful tirade to newspapers, which was published immediately. He went on to make a series of contributions to the media under a bewildering variety of names, discovering as he did a talent for journalism that was to be the key to his later career. Returning to the UK, he combined the careers of writing and management, first in engineering and later as a local government officer in London, where he rubbed shoulders with many prominent politicians of today in their formative years, and no doubt influenced their thinking along the way. His writing career flourished, and in 1984 he became editor of the Sikh Messenger. He now makes regular contributions to The Times, The Guardian, The Independent, and a variety of magazines in the UK and overseas. Inevitably, he came to the attention of the broadcast media and began to appear on radio and TV. He's now exceptionally well known for a 3-minute slot on Radio 4 shortly before 8 in the morning when he presents his thought for the day. With consummate skill, he promotes his message of interfaith understanding and tolerance in the context of the issues of the moment, and invariably quotes from the appropriate guru to reinforce his point. So many of us have been stimulated to pause and reflect by his gentle but persuasive reminder of the virtues of tolerance and understanding. He also presents Pause for Thought on Radio 2, in a different style to a different audience, with the same message. Over a lifetime of scholarship, he's become an expert on Sikhism, and his high profile means that he is the first port of call for organisations consulting on issues of diversity. He's a member of the Home Secretary's Advisory Board on Race Relations, of the Broadcasting Authority's Central Religious Advisory Committee, and the United Nations Association Religious Advisory Committee, to name but a few. He represented the Sikh community in Downing Street talks on promoting interfaith understanding in the aftermath of 9/11, and is complimented regularly by the highest in the land for the effectiveness of his contributions. He's a founder member and former co-chair of the Interfaith Network UK, linking more than 80 organisations from all faiths, a member of the Department of Education Inner City Religious Advisory Council, and a trustee of the World Council of Faiths. He speaks regularly at a huge number of events when his scholarship and expertise impart an authority that few will challenge. His achievements have been recognised by the award of the Templeton Medal in 1989 for the furtherance of spiritual and ethical understanding, the Interfaith Medallion in 1991, and an OBE in 1996. Inderjit Singh is a perfect role model for positive response to adversity. His experience of discrimination from all sides has not left him alienated and dispirited, but stimulated a profound faith in the capacity of humankind to live in tolerance and celebration of diversity. He stands true to the principles of his own faith, celebrating both his own individualism and the rights of others to do the same, and sets a shining example for us all to follow. Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Senate and the Council, I present to you Indarjit Singh, that you may confer upon him the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws.
Doctor of Law, and Doctor of Law. Very, very good.
Chancellor, Professor Burgess, Hilary Burgess, Professor Peterson, Professor Bonney, friends, I'm truly delighted and honoured to receive this honorary doctorate of laws, and embarrassed by all the very kind things said about me by Professor Peterson. Leicester has always held a special place in my heart for its strong lead in promoting religious and cultural understanding. Bishop Tom Butler, a former Bishop of Leicester, is a valued colleague and friend on the Inner Cities Religious Council and on the Interfaith Network, as well as a fellow contributor to Thought for the Day. I'm also privileged to be a colleague of Tim Stevens, your present bishop, and work with him on the Inner Cities Religious Council and on the government's review of working with faith communities. In 2002, I was invited out of the blue to a meeting at Buckingham Palace to advise on the Queen's first ever visit to a Sikh place of worship as part of her Jubilee celebrations. And without hesitation, I suggested Leicester, and this visit proved to be one of the highlights of her Jubilee year. It would be wonderful if Leicester's enlightened approach to interfaith harmony were to extend to other parts of the world, where religion is commonly seen as a cause of conflict between people, in places like Northern Ireland, the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, and other areas. There is something in the accusation. All too often, religious leaders use their holy texts as offensive weapons in murderous games of my religion is better than yours. We all know that what happens when two small boys, it's always boys, start arguing that my dad is better, stronger, bigger than your dad. The end is always physical conflict. And so it is when we argue in this way between religions. Sadly, not a lot has changed since the time of Guru Nanak some 500 years ago, when different religious factions were behaving in this way. Guru Nanak taught that God is not in the least bit interested in our different religious labels, but in the way we live and behave, the way in which we live our religious teachings. If we really look at different religions in this way, as you are doing in Leicester, we see that they are not mutually exclusive paths, but overlapping circles of belief in which the area of overlap is far, far greater than the smaller area of difference. In that area of overlap, we find positive values such as tolerance, responsible living, looking to the needs of others, particularly to the disadvantaged, values that we all too easily forget in today's preoccupation with pandering to self, because, as the advert says, we're worth it. One of the best things about doing Thought for the Day is the feedback from listeners, although I must say that there's always one lady from Devon who writes that unless I repent fairly soon, I'm in a great deal of trouble. But I've noticed the greatest response is always when you say something against yourself. I once spoke about my attitude to packing to go on holidays. My wife and daughters would always seem to take an inordinate length of time on packing. They'd always make this a major task. I couldn't see that. And I'd say, it's simple. Just make a list of what you need to take and throw the items into a suitcase. Well, once when we were going for a few days to Cheddar Gorge, and due to some commitment, I was to join them a day later. I got my list and put things into the case and drove off to meet them. When I got there, horror of horrors, I found I'd forgotten my case. I'd forgotten to put it in the car. But there was no sympathy, just unending laughter from my wife and two daughters. And I've never been allowed to forget it since. I'd like to conclude with a little advice to new postgraduates, graduates, and those who will soon be graduating. You'll be embarking on new careers in a rapidly changing world, in changing disciplines. My advice to you is don't be like me in my attitude to packing. Don't pack away the ethical teachings of responsibility, tolerance, concern, and respect for others and forget about them, or leave them to look at them at another time. Ethical values deteriorate without use. Keep your values and ideals with you at all times and let them influence you in everything you do. My best wishes to you all. Thank you.
The graduands in the Faculty of Medicine and Biological Sciences will be presented by the Dean, Professor Lauder. Will all graduands in the faculty please stand?
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to admit these candidates from the Faculty of Medicine and Biological Sciences to the several degrees for which they are presented.
Graduands of the Faculty of Medicine and Biological Sciences, by the authority of the Senate, I admit you to the several degrees for which you are presented.
For the degree of Doctor of Medicine, Julia Barron. Abdul El Soy. Ruth Green. Jacqueline Tay. For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Mana Al-Monif. Nurul Amin. Paul Atherfold. Lucinda Billingham. Rachel Boltby. Anne-Marie Cannaby. Harriet Clark. Verian Codd. Victoria Coulthard. Sarah Donald. Rana El Rashkidi. Nicholas Harper. Lynn Howells. Renaya Jaunblatt. Rachel Leplar. Rana Mackey. George Mavroudis. Kirsty McLean. Keith McCluckey. Jolanta Obzinska. Catherine Pashley. Rob Reed. Barry Shepherd. Anne Shipman.
executive degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Congratulations.
Keith Stevenson.
Executive degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Congratulations.
Philip Troke.
Very good. Executive degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Congratulations.
For the degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology, Nicholas Bunker.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology. Congratulations.
Lindsay Hume.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Sharon Lord.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Andrew MacDougall.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Shelley McEwen.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Helen Philpott.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Helen Reeder.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology.
Claire Summerscales.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology. Congratulations.
Sarah Toft.
Executive degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology. Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Philosophy, Sarah Berlin.
Congratulations. Well done.
Mark Bradley.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Arts in Social Work, Christina Smith.
Congratulations. Well done.
For the degree of Master of Science in Applied Forensic Psychology, Kirsten Barnes.
Congratulations. Well done.
Jill Barrett.
Congratulations.
Jane Burkett.
Congratulations.
Samantha Brown.
Congratulations.
Hilary Button.
Congratulations.
Curry Davies.
Congratulations. Well done.
Sally Fent.
Congratulations.
Gillian Merrill.
Congratulations.
Ruby Patel.
Congratulations.
Leona Pixley.
Congratulations.
Donna Spencer.
Congratulations.
Sarah Stringfellow.
Congratulations.
Leanne Watson.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Assessment and Treatment of Sex Offenders, Glenn Dawson.
Congratulations.
Michael Fowler.
Congratulations.
Linda Green.
Congratulations.
Joe Hebb.
Congratulations.
Steve Marshall.
Congratulations.
Ian Patterson.
Congratulations.
Anne-Marie Salmon.
Congratulations.
Rebecca Saunders.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Clinical Science, Julie Cooper.
Congratulations. Well done.
For the degree of Master of Science in Forensic and Legal Psychology, Jeffrey Arnold.
Congratulations.
Stephen Eccleshall.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Forensic Psychology, Lucy Freeman.
Congratulations.
Susie Grennan.
Congratulations.
Haley Jones.
Congratulations.
Hannah Pike.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Health Services Research, Beverly Harris.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Medical Statistics, Jonathan Bestwick.
Congratulations. Well done.
Chloe Carpendale.
Congratulations. Well done.
Alison Collier.
Congratulations. Well done.
Laura Gray.
Congratulations.
James Griffin.
Congratulations.
Saeed Ibrahim.
Congratulations.
Katie Pike,
Congratulations.
Suzanne Stevens,
Congratulations.
Cassandra Toon,
Congratulations.
Elizabeth Williamson.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Molecular Genetics, Catherine Andriadi.
Congratulations.
Amrita Jaishankar,
Congratulations.
Theodoros Kandidakis,
Congratulations.
Dominic Kelly,
Congratulations.
Gaurav Kumar,
Congratulations.
Parvez Lokhandwala,
Congratulations.
Aaron Mendes Bermudez,
Congratulations.
Eleftheria Pervolarake,
Congratulations. Well done.
Lina Ray,
Congratulations. Well done.
Saolun Sai.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Molecular Pathology and Toxicology, Suhair Al-Hazal.
Congratulations.
Mandeep Bamra,
Congratulations.
Victoria Boyer,
Congratulations.
Peter Goodrum,
Congratulations.
Krishna Kumar Kothan Daraman,
Congratulations.
Evaglos Leapis,
Congratulations.
Paul Meller,
Congratulations.
Thomas Mindos,
Congratulations.
Joanne Thacker.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Occupational Psychology, Ferdowsi Begum,
Congratulations.
Sarah Talbot Brown,
Congratulations.
Judith Cullen,
Congratulations.
Kathy Denton,
Congratulations.
Sian Ferguson,
Congratulations.
Peter Gualo,
Congratulations.
Christine Grant,
Congratulations.
Evelyn Keyes,
Congratulations.
Stuart Lowe,
Congratulations.
Nicola Oliver,
Congratulations. Thank you.
Ian Sharp,
Congratulations.
Catherine Steele, Gail Steptor Warren.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Science in Pain Management, Sarah Cooling.
Congratulations. Well done.
For the degree of Master of Science in Psychology of Work, Ward Atkinson.
Congratulations. Well done.
Claudine Camilleri,
Congratulations.
Kevin Coley,
Congratulations.
Pella Williams.
Congratulations.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to admit to the several degrees for which they are presented by my faculty those candidates who are absent.
By the authority of the Senate, I admit those candidates who are absent to the several degrees for which they are presented.
The graduands in the Faculty of Education and Continuing Studies will be presented by the Dean, Professor Fogelman. Will all graduands in the faculty please stand?
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to admit these candidates from the Faculty of Education and Continuing Studies to the several degrees for which they are presented.
Graduates of the Faculty of Education and Continuing Studies, by the authority of the Senate, I admit you to the several degrees for which you are presented.
For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Anne Briggs.
Doctor of Philosophy,
Josephine O'Brien.
I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Congratulations.
Ian Terrell. For the degree of Doctor of Education, Wen Chin Chen.
Congratulations.
Karen Federholt.
Congratulations.
David Lee.
Congratulations.
Yao K. Mack.
Congratulations.
Sean O'Halloran.
Congratulations.
David Over.
Congratulations.
For the degree of Master of Arts in Applied Linguistics and the Teaching of English to Speakers of Other Languages, Evi Kotsidaki. Mary Macaulay. Christina Wright. Paulina Zaxter-Garber. For the degree of Master of Arts in Primary Education, Catherine Ford. For the degree of Master of Arts in Professional Studies in Education, Leslie Baker. Melanie Hendy. So Lee. Karen McGawley. For the degree of Master of Arts in Psychodynamic Counselling, Jane Lawrence. Fiona Wagstaff. For the degree of Master of Business Administration, Education Management, Christopher Ashton. Patricia Barron. Catherine Britton. Simon Burnley. Ursula Byrne. Iago Cornelius Jones. Nigel Evans. Anne Foles. Christopher Fox. Jane Fry. Emma Goodwin. Vesna Jackson. Karen Jefferson. Robert Jones. Carolyn Jones. Karin Lindegaard. Peter Makawa. Joanna Manson. Carol May. John Morrison. Joshua Mose. Elizabeth Noble. Robert Page. Barbara Poynton. Christopher Robinson. Peter Shaw. Pamela Thompson. Nicholas Thornburg. Susan Vint. Francesca Walsh.
Congratulations. Well done.
Stuart Williams.
Congratulations.
Peter Wood.
Congratulations. Well done.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to admit to the several degrees for which they are presented by my faculty those candidates who are absent.
By the authority of the Senate, I admit those candidates who are absent to the several degrees for which they are presented.
In former times, universities used to be described as ivory towers, a term combining both criticism and envy. Scholars were thinking deep thoughts in comfortable surroundings, but they were cut off from the real world. Well, whatever truth this may have had, it no longer applies today, as events of the past few weeks have shown. Top-up fees have put universities in the political spotlight, competing with weapons of mass destruction for the headlines. Of course, this is not the occasion to enter into the financial intricacies of the debate, but the argument is not just about money. Deeper questions lie behind. What is the role of universities, and how do they fit into society? On a day when all of us here are celebrating the degrees being awarded at this university, it seems pertinent to reflect on such general questions. And I will take a few moments to give you my own thoughts, but this is a lecture for which no examination question will be set. It's important to recognise that universities, like all social institutions, evolve with time, and their role has to reflect the general changes in society. Moreover, there has always been a close relation between universities and the power in the land. Towers they may have been, but the towers were built by kings. In medieval England, many of the colleges of Oxford and Cambridge were founded by monarchs. Their motives were, as usual, mixed. On the one hand, there were moral and theological ideals for the glory of God, while more pragmatically, there was a need for trained servants of the crown and church. As history unfolded, universities were not immune to upheavals in church and state, and some poor vice-chancellors ended up at the stake, fate they are spared these days. Gradually, universities widened their horizons and taught the new sciences. This brought the rebuke that they were not producing the manpower the country needed, that is to say, ministers to fill the pulpits of the church, and were wasting precious resources on abstract and useless subjects, a theme with a modern ring to it, even if the content has got reversed. In the 19th century, in the heyday of the British Empire, the main function of the universities was to educate those who were going out to govern India or other imperial provinces. In the 20th century, the British Empire has disappeared, and we entered the era of globalization, which some will view as the American Empire. Others may come to recognize as the new Chinese Empire. But whatever term one uses, it's clear that the role of universities is now quite different. The government sees a competitive world where our future lies in science-based industries and the financial services. Our economy must be skills-based, and our universities must provide the necessary trained manpower. Moreover, national frontiers should not hinder the free flow of ideas and expertise, so that universities have also to operate in a worldwide market. These are the economic and political realities, and universities cannot evade their responsibilities. On the other hand, history shows that the relation of the university to the state is an uneasy one. Universities have to accommodate with the rulers of the time, but they also provide an alternative view of the needs of the country, one that is more fundamental and long-term. Governments measure events on a timescale determined by elections, which units are years, not decades. Universities should think in terms of decades and centuries. Governments make decisions which may be reversed by the next government, or even sooner. Universities turn out students now who will be around for most of the 21st century, and they turn out ideas which may be around for even longer. So universities have to concentrate on things of permanent value. In their educational role, they should aim to produce students who have been taught to think for themselves. Yes, they should acquire marketable skills for today, but more importantly, they should learn how to adapt so they can survive tomorrow. They should be taught not just the rules of the game, but they should be prepared to ask questions so that the rules can be changed. In fact, it is more important to know how to ask the right questions than it is to learn how to parrot the right answers. This ability to ask questions is the most difficult and important requirement for citizens today. This has been highlighted by the other great news event of the past few weeks, the argument about 45 minutes. It's commonly said that we are drowning in a sea of information or misinformation. We are bombarded by facts, opinions, comments in newspapers, television, email. Whose views should we trust? The government, the opposition, the media, the police, security services, the judges? Clearly, they cannot all be right. And each citizen has to come to his or her own verdict. A key function of universities is to produce citizens who will be able to sift through the conflicting reports and come to appropriate conclusions. George Orwell forecast in melodramatic form the problem we face. He pointed out that propaganda is put out by ministries of information, that wars are planned by ministries of defense. Language is the first casualty in the attack on truth. I presume that most of you have a regular newspaper that you read. I would recommend that at least for a while, as long as you can afford the time and the money, you should read 2 different newspapers from opposite poles of the political spectrum. You will soon discover that not everything you read in print can be true. This itself is a salutary experience, first step on the path to truth. And it is not an easy lesson to learn. I remember in days long past, when my graduate students would hand in a roughly scribbled argument on scrappy paper, I would take up my red pencil and score out the many serious mistakes. When the word processor appeared, it all changed. The students could hand in beautifully printed, clean pages of imposing text. And despite myself, I would be impressed. It was that polished and convincing look that only the printed version provides, even though I knew that it was likely to be the same rubbish as before. Well, you have been patient, allowing me to get a few things off my chest. Now that I'm retired from most of my positions, it's only the University of Leicester that kindly allows me to pontificate. More seriously, I'm glad to be with you on this happy occasion, celebrating your various achievements in the company of your friends, family, and teachers. The Vice-Chancellor and I have shaken your hands, many hands, a symbolic gesture which we make both personally and on behalf of the University of Leicester. And as you go away on your various paths, I hope you will continue to feel part of the university and you will in different ways contribute to its mission. But above all, think for yourselves. I now declare this congregation closed.